All right, Ed Carbajal speaking with Jillian DeCoursey, Lionheart Jillian DeCoursey after her big win at Invicta FC 47. I mean, it's not right after. I mean, it's a couple. You took some time off just to wind down and celebrate. I mean, my first question actually is, I mean, I know you probably already saw me the night because I watched it and recorded it, and it was just following your whole journey. It's just been it's something that it's been fun to do and just to watch you get that win. I mean, I have so many things I want to ask you, but first, how long did it take you to come down off of the high that you were feeling that night?
Oh man, I mean, I'm still riding it because I like just got back to the gym like Friday pretty much. So that was like everything it brought it back to life again because everyone at the
Mhm.
gym is like obviously like ecstatic. One of the coaches was like, we've had like some major like UFC guys, like lots of big name fighters come out of our gym, and he's like, seriously, he's like, you're like the smallest fighter we have, and you have had out of anyone all time like the most brutal knockout.
Yeah, I mean, it really was something. I mean, I have to say, I mean, before, like I said, there's so much I just want to get off my chest from watching that night, and I know I recorded it, but I was doing a bunch of other things trying to keep because we were doing like that fight side chat on the podcast that you've been on, um, and one of the things I noticed because I rewatched it two times after it happened, and one of the things I noticed was just like I don't think I've ever seen like when you were walking into the cage, there I definitely saw just a whole different vibe. Like I've seen you fight before, obviously, but just the difference of you walking in that night, it was I even said it when we were doing the thing. I said I quoted that movie Over the Top. I was like, she literally did the thing where you turn the baseball cap, where it's Stallone, he turns the
Yeah.
cap around to just change his whole and I was just like I was like, I can already tell she did that right just now. And I mean, just can you just talk about like how you changed your whole mindset for everything? I mean, that night.
Yeah, but I mean, this camp, like I've like done like mindset stuff in the past, leading up
Hmm.
to fights, but never to the extent that I did for this camp. I actually read like a bunch of books on like different like mindset things for like combat athletes.
Hmm.
And I found ways that it just like to apply it to my game.
Hmm.
And that I think made the biggest difference,
Mm.
because ever like you're not the only one to say that to me, like walking out and like just seeing like how I was like fight night. A lot of people mentioned that to me. They were like, "Hey, that you were looked like the calmest and like most composed and collected that like I've ever seen you
Yeah.
walking into a fight." And especially this was a big fight. I was a big underdog coming in. I knew that. They didn't really pay much mind to it. It was more like I would joke about it once in a while. But once fight week hit, it was all about like just being present in the moment, taking every aspect in, and like not so much like focusing on the results of the fight because there's so many variables that come into play, right? Like there's the judges, there's this, there's just like you can get caught, right? Things happen.
Hmm.
So it's more like for me, I just was focusing on trying to put everything that we worked on during camp, making it come out, and just like performing to the best of my ability and going in with that thought process instead of focusing on like your record, where your stats are at, like what's
Yeah.
next after this. That clouds you and you're not actually present, and it was impeding my performance because I'd
Mm.
be so worried about like what my record was going to be if I won or I lost. And you fight nervous and then you're not performing. So I was just focusing on what can I do,
Hmm.
and performing the best I could, and that was the result of it.
I mean, whatever it was, it's obviously it worked, and you have to repeat the process. Off the top of your head, can you remember the names of the books? Just so I feel like that's just knowledge that needs to be passed on. So,
The one main one, I believe it was called Mindset.
mindset.
Yeah, I'll get you the names though, and
Okay.
send them over. Yeah. But it just clicked for me. It
Hmm.
was actually my boyfriend kind of gave me them, and he was like he had read them and they were helpful for him, and I just like read them multiple times through camp, and I would like
Mm.
the week leading up to the fight, I actually went through and I was highlighting like important pieces of it, and kind of going into it that way. I'm actually probably gonna reach out to the guy who wrote it, because he does some like trainings and stuff, and being like, "Hey, like, can we work together?" Like,
Yeah, that I mean, that's obviously it had an impact. I mean, that goes to say there's a lot going into preparation. It's not just the drilling and the technique and everything. There's I mean, you have to do something to get your inner
right,
athlete ready too. I mean, just the everything seemed to fall into place. And I'm just wondering, given the history that you and Van Zandt had, you had fought, you're both local from the same area, and then she fought in Bellator and in Rising and stuff like that, and you fought everywhere you fought. um I'm wondering, like, what was the vibe facing each other again, like, that week? I mean, obviously you did the face offs. I saw the photos they sent to
right.
Invicta with she had the cosplay on, and I mean, it's just so weird because you're all, like the way you are now, you're smiling and everything, and then it was just like a different person walked into the cage. But what was like the vibe that week between you and her?
I mean, we actually didn't run into each other too many times, but when we saw each other, we were like pleasant. It
Mhm.
was like, "Hey, how are you?" And then it was, like, okay, like
Yeah,
we weren't like all chummy like we would be like if we weren't fighting each other. If we weren't fighting each other, we probably would have been hanging out fight week.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but because we were fighting each other, it was just like respectful. Hey, what's up? When we were doing some of our like media stuff, we actually were like, we were like, she's coming out, I'm coming in, and we joked around like we were like gonna get into like a tussle and like, but it wasn't, it was all like in like good fun. And then
Hmm.
come fight night, it's like okay, you flip the switch, and it's like okay,
Yeah,
we're here to handle business. So
yeah. I'm wondering if there was any sort of like, just because of it, all the time that's passed between from the first time you guys face each other as amateurs to, you both have your professional careers, and here you are
mhm.
running into each other again, and we saw the result. But I mean, was there any sort of like, I mean, I'm only asking because I felt like I kind of caught the wind of overconfidence on her part. I mean, you even said that you were the underdog coming in. I mean,
Right,
which I didn't quite get, but maybe it's because we talk so much that I was just like, "Where's that coming from?" But you know what I mean? Like I just was like, I felt like I'm like, is she taking her too lightly? Does she feel like, you know what I mean? Like
right.
like was there any of that, like, as far as like, as I know you were in like a flow state when you fought, but
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
like, I mean, I saw, like, her, like, where I was waiting, in
hmm,
particular, right before I was about to, like, walk out to the cage.
hmm,
I was actually able to see, the video and hear it,
hmm. Oh.
like, right before, and I was like, "Alright, I got you," like, we're it just kinda it gave me, like, a little bit of an extra like, I'm glad I
Hmm.
saw it in that moment because not that I wasn't ready or anything beforehand, but that just, like that was, like, an extra spark. It was like, "Alright, we
Yeah.
doing this, let's go." Um, I think for her, like, she actually reached out to me after the fact, kinda, like, not necessarily apologizing, but being like, "Hey, like, I know things might have came
Yeah.
across certain way, like, I wasn't taking you lightly, none of that was that wasn't the
Mhm.
case." And I believe her on that because
Yeah.
we get wrapped up into fight week, right? We get wrapped
Mhm.
up into those interviews and things that we need to say, right, to appear a certain way.
Yeah.
And I was wrapped up into that for a little bit, and my last couple fights, I like really broke away from it because I'm like, that's
Mhm.
not who I am. I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
that type of person. Like, I don't do that. So,
Mhm.
I was being somebody that I wasn't. And I think a lot of fighters get wrapped up into that. And it's like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to
Yeah.
hate each other. We don't need to talk, all this smack. We can actually like you can just be ourselves and be cool and like you can still sell tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the fan base that you have and the fan base that she had, and I know, because of the region that we're in, that fight was special to a
Yeah.
lot of folks. And but it's funny that you say that. Plus, what you said about the book with the mindset and everything.
Right.
A lot of fighters. I mean, everyone handles how where they have to get themselves mentally, differently before a fight.
Right.
But I mean, it is still a sport. And speaking of being sportsmanlike, or whatever, however you want to phrase it, I mean, obviously when you get when you get a win like that, the emotion and everything we're gonna get what we saw, where you
Right.
jumped into your boyfriend's arms and almost out of the cage, and all like, and all of that. But then and then you always catch yourself, and bring it back to kind of
Right.
a level normalcy. And when the mic was put in front of you, I mean, I don't think anyone could have handled it more professionally and more sportsmanlike. I mean, you did a call out where you kind of just you said what you wanted, whether it be the title shot or whoever. I forget what direct exactly, you were like the title or whoever's between me and the title or something
Right.
to that
Yeah,
effect.
pretty much that's like
Yeah, which was perfect. Which was perfect. I mean, how did you refocus to put it out there so plainly?
Well, I had like spent some time because like we had like that's part of the sport, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
professionals. We know if we, win, the mic's getting put in front of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's important to kind of prepare to some degree, right? Like we can't
Mm,
spend you can't spend too much time like focusing on that because then it takes away from the fight itself. But I think that's part of like preparation, right? Is thinking about like, okay, what am I gonna, what are some things I could potentially say? And I had told myself like I didn't like fully rehearse what I was gonna say, but I knew if I finished this fight, if I got a finish, I was gonna call for the title.
mm,
And some other people on the card like called for it in different ways. Wasn't really a fan of that style. Like I don't think you ever should demand things or
mhm.
because it's who are you? Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like that's like telling your boss, like, I demand you give me a raise. Yeah, it usually doesn't work out so well, right? Like, but
Yeah.
you got to ask for things, put, and show it by like what you do.
Mhm.
So, I just let my kind of personality, take over with that and being like, all right, well, how would I like somebody to kind of say it, but like say it with a conviction, like, hey,
Mm.
I'm confident and this is what I think I should get. And if that's not the case, well, then give me this to get there.
Yeah. No, it was perfect. I thought it was perfect. Um,
Thank you.
and one of the things that I wanted to ask you too was especially about the way that you won. I mean, it was just such a clean. It seems such like a clean combo. The way it was set up and everything. I mean, for you, did it just when you're in that? Do you even remember when your mind is so focused and you're in that flow state? I mean, I don't think it's hard to when you look at finishes like that. I'm trying to think. The last time I saw a finish that perfect might have been when Cerrone finished with the body shot and I can't think of the fighter's name right now. He wanted to fight in the PFL, but it was just very I don't know. It was just something. It's a thing of beauty. I mean, did you when you landed the shot that eventually won you the fight? I mean, was there any like impact on your hand? Because sometimes when you land like that, you don't even feel anything.
Um, I didn't like in the moment. I didn't
Mm,
even know honestly that she was out like that.
mm,
Because I was so wrapped up in the fight in the
yeah,
moment. And I know there's been a few trolls that are like, oh, those the extra shots on the ground were unnecessary. Well, obviously they've never been in an actual fight, right?
hmm,
Where you're in the moment. I
yeah,
just saw her hit the ground, and my thought process was like, "Oh, you're in my world. You're where I want you to be. Let me go. I
yeah,
need to
yeah,
go there."
yeah.
And I've actually had a teammate recently got a knockdown like that. Didn't follow up. The
Hmm.
kid recovered, and he wound up getting finished.
Wow, yeah,
Later that round. So it's like, we learn from those things. And then plus in the back, I can count, like, I can't even count how many times the ref told me, I am not stepping in to stop this fight unless I absolutely need to. You need to
yeah,
convince me that this fight
hmm,
needs to be stopped. So he told me that like at least 5 times.
hmm,
So that goes into your mindset going into like, hey, you know what? If I want this fight stopped, I got to make it convincing.
yeah,
And then once he kinda put his hands on me, it was like, "Oh, wait, like, she was out."
yeah,
Um, but even, like, it was unbelievable, because 'cause you're not
hmm,
gonna expect it, especially at 105 pounds, that I'm gonna lay somebody out with 1 punch.
yeah.
I asked my boyfriend, like, a million times, like, I'm like, "This really just happened? Did I just really knock her out?" Like like, we're on top of the
Yeah.
cage, and I'm like, "Really? Wait, this really just happened?"
Yeah, you literally almost launched yourself out of the cage. It was crazy after like the you could tell the rush that came over you. But you also were still again like just like you said, you took the words right out of my mouth actually. You know, you were attacking until the ref stopped you.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't anything extra or unnecessary in my opinion. So like you said, I mean, it must be newer eyes watching that particular fight, but I think I mean there was nothing wrong with it at all. I mean, it was just me and Matt were in shock watching it. I have to ask you something because I don't know if it's something Matt caught on to, because that happened on May 11th,
Yep.
and that Friday was Friday the 13th. And Matt had that Friday the 13th question for you, and I'm like, okay. And I know Jason, your manager, was there with you. Was there
Yep.
any? I mean, was there any weird like I don't know, superstition or anything for that week that between you and your team, given the result that came?
Yeah, no, I mean, there wasn't, but I was so just dialed in like
Hmm.
that, like there was nothing really kind of outside of my mindset of except for like, hey, fight night. So I wasn't really thinking about anything because I've done that before. I've gotten like caught up in like, little
Hmm.
intricacies and it never played out well. So I was just like, yeah, we're not thinking about anything. It is
Yeah,
just like, moment by moment right now. I'm
yeah,
focusing on like what we got to do come fight night.
yeah. I don't think I've ever seen you more present and more perfect. And obviously, I mean, the week, the way everything went, was this the first time for you fighting with fans? I
Did they? I think at the tournament we had some fans, maybe.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah.
I mean,
Honestly, can't no, we didn't. I think we were supposed to have fans, and then I think we didn't wind up. Yeah, so it might have been like the first one where like fans
mhm,
were back, and it was like because we had a quarantine and
mhm,
all that good stuff when we did the tournament. So
mhm.
yeah, this was the first time where it was back to being like more relaxed, where like we can go come and go and not be
So
tied up in
you
our hotel room.
Yeah, but you were so focused then that wasn't even something that crossed your mind. You were just
Yeah,
focusing on fight night, huh?
yeah, and I had actually 2, both Fatima and Jen were like 2 of my main training partners for this
Mhm.
camp. Since we were all on the same card, we were all
That's
pretty
right.
local to
Yeah.
each other, so we were meeting up once, twice a week to spar and train. But even with them, like I would see them throughout the week, but it was just so like, hey, I gotta be in my zone, gotta do what I gotta do, and then
Mm.
afterwards we were all hanging out.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's great that the timing, I mean, just of when it happened, how it happened, and obviously with being able to be a little more free with your teammates and stuff. And I don't think it could have been more perfect for you. And one of the other questions I had was as far as like what yeah, you had the call out, like when do you expect to be back into action? What do you think is going to come next for you when it comes to Invicta?
I mean, my hope is I want that title shot.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I feel pretty confident that that, at some point it should happen.
Hmm.
I'm thinking, not before like the fall, because they got a card coming up in July and it's like kind of been looking pretty consistent that it's like every other month that they're kind of doing.
Hmm.
So that brings us to kind of the fall-ish. So it's kind of, perfect timing. For me, like an ideal time would be like November. Give me like
Hmm.
little time so I kind of do everything you got to do. I'm already back to training, already back to kind of
Yeah.
tweaking little things. Like even though it was only like a minute long fight, there's always things that you
Yeah.
can work on and get better. And for me, it's like not getting. It's like yeah, enjoying the moment of having like such a an awesome finish,
Hmm.
but also like being kind of realistic and bringing myself down where it's like all right, but you know what, like we want more than this. There's more to it.
Hmm.
So like what do we gotta focus on? What do we gotta work on to, get to that next level?
It's funny you're saying that. I don't know why it just jumped in my head, but I'm remembering when you fought at CFFC against Elise.
Okay, yep.
Um, and so that was for a title on that was short notice for you too, right?
It wasn't really no, it wasn't short notice that
Was it
one.
short? No, no.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was just I jumped up a weight class.
that's what it
That
was. Yeah.
that was a
No-
fight I learned that you are a 105er.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, there had to be something for you getting ready for a title fight someplace else that kind of
Right.
made you just, revamp everything. I mean, like you said, you got the books, and your boyfriend helped you out with the focus and the mental side of things, recommending the stuff that he gave, and I think it just looks like I said, I'm talking about your journey. It just seems like all of these, the losses brought you to the lessons from those losses
Yep.
brought you to this outcome.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean the biggest like we kind of touched on it about like not making things like special, like when you were asking that
Mhm.
like Friday the 13th, and that's what I mean that's literally what I did during that title fight because it actually fell on like my little brother's birthday that had passed away. So it was like
Mm,
I made it so much about him and so
mm,
much like about like, my fight outfit, everything was like for him, like in his memory and his honor. And like that's not necessarily the best things to do
Mhm.
because you get so like you put so much extra pressure on yourself. So that was like a big thing that I learned from that. Like,
Mhm.
hey, you know what? Wait, we gotta like yeah, we gotta do things for certain reasons sometimes, but like that can be the purpose behind it because it just clouds what the end result is.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, not for nothing now. I mean, especially you got your man. I know your manager's a horror fan. I mean, now you have to put a special stamp on if
Yeah, and
you're
be like,
fighting and it's gonna be Friday the 13th that week. Now it's like, okay, you better
it's a good
Jillian might knock
omen.
somebody out this week. Yeah, out
I
of the
mean, it is
blue.
kind of creepy.
Yeah, yeah, but hey, I mean, what could be better for someone that's kind of, I mean, you're like a casual. I mean, I forget what you say when it comes to your horror fandom, but I know your manager's a hardcore horror fan. So what it can't be more perfect, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm a horror fan by association.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Even though not for nothing, you tweet so many quick
Could
horror quizzes. It's a
Yeah, I'm usually
I
like,
feel like
"Hey,
you don't
give me
even
some
know.
give me some info. Teach me a little."
But it's always just like your quizzes are I mean they're very well thought out, just like everything else you do. I mean, obviously, and everything with the fight and your career and the people you help with that are under the same management and stuff
Right.
like that. And it's just, I don't think it could have been more perfect. I'm so happy for you. And
Thank you, thank you.
I know I'm supposed to be objective. People are like, "Oh, you're a journalist. Why are you fanboying?" I never called myself a journalist. I like to tell the stories that the fighters are worried about fighting. Let me help tell their story, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you let me tell your story.
Thank you, I
So,
appreciate it, and I mean, that's what Twitter's been great for, is, like, really getting people to get to know, like, me,
mhm,
and, who I am. Because I was like, there's a big struggle where it was like, "Hey," people don't really know, like, who we are, they just know our, like, the persona of the fight game, and there's, like, a lot more to most of us, and it's
mhm,
just finding a way to kinda let people see that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. I mean, I don't have any more questions. I mean, if
Okay.
you want to go ahead and plug your Sceptra and the Sick Chic and all your sponsors and stuff. I'm trying to remember them off the top of my head because I
Like
know it.
Yes, I have some I'm lucky. I have like amazing sponsors. Most of them actually have been with me since like my amateur days.
Mhm,
And it's like for me like that's like it's more important of like the type of people I work with than like, the names behind them. I've had like some bigger companies reach out, but I don't really agree. Like if I don't agree with like their morals or the way they kind of do business and like no, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people that I can help build up and like
mhm.
help build me up. So my fight outfits are always done by Wendy Jarva from Seek Chick. My meal prep, making sure I make weight is Swole House Meals. My CBDs with Receptra. I got Young Living, Grit to protect my teeth with mouth guards. I got Roger Mitterling, Donna Moore. All my kind of like training kind of clothes, like just the casual stuff is Guard What's Yours. Um, we got Itza, we got all my supplements. I get some Hearts wholesale supplements. You can get some good cheap supplements from them online. And my gyms. I do my strength and conditioning at CrossFit Strong Island, Long Island MMA, and I got Ring Sport Muay Thai, and of course my manager Jason Adams with Underdog MMA. And thank
Cool.
you for having me on.
Well, thank you for making the time, and I appreciate you giving me the shout out after the win, where you said you were gonna wait to before you talk to anyone else. You were gonna talk
Yes.
to me first, and I literally was like, I was like, wow, they caught me off guard, and I was literally all by myself sitting at a bar, looking at us, and I was over the hill. I said,
Well, Bill, thank you for always supporting me.
yeah, yeah. Well, hey, yeah, I mean, you've been at it for a while, and it's just, I think I started watching you before I even got into covering the sport, and I'm
Wow,
just
that's
like,
cool.
yeah, and I'm just like, it's just crazy. It's just a crazy circle of things, and more to come from you.
Yes,
Looking forward to it.
that's the plan.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Jillian.
Thank you.